Okay, so it's 3 past 10. So I will then briefly start with the third session of this. We call it the Data-Driven Energy Community Leadership Program. And today we will be focusing on the social aspects. So first of all, I will let you know that this is being recorded. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. This will be read after our experts present their input. And as always, we will share all the materials that are being here presented, as well as the recording. And now I will ask my colleague Julian if he can share the screen and shows this nice slide that he just prepared for us to break the ice. Okay. Thank you, Julian. So this is the code for the people who just joined. Maybe we can type it here in the screen as well. 877. So we're curious to know if you attended the previous webinars, if this is your first webinar, if you have attended either the first and the second, no, or just the first or just second. So we see that we have here old friends. That's good. And that's really good because it's going to benefit you, like matching all the different pieces of this project, because we focus so much on digital tools, but it is not always all about digital tools, and that's what we'll discover today. So yes, we have some responses. We can pass to the next question, maybe. And people are still joining. So yes, we are asking again, from which country are you connecting? And this is important. We will be contacting you later on for their events and sessions on this very topic. So we see people from Switzerland, Slovenia, from Greece, Portugal, Ireland, Germany, Bulgaria. From maybe this is not a country, or I haven't heard about Electroras PDNU. Maybe it is about the country, not the organization. People from Bulgaria, that's nice. And now this last question that we want to ask, I think this is a introduction to the very topic we're going to deal today. And we're going to ask you now which incentives or maybe benefits could make you or encourage you to join an energy community. It can be, I don't know, some economical incentives, or it's really open. Like what could really make you join lower energy prices? That's a really good one. Financial one. Yeah. That's what are the first things that you think when it comes to your mind? I would like to join an energy community. What makes me want to do this? We see people talking about low energy prices. We see people talking about energy security, which is an important concept. We talk about autonomy. We talk about community-driven decisions. That's really nice. And our speakers are here listening, so maybe they could connect with what they're going to say in a few minutes. Talking about autonomy, community engagement. That's really nice. That's really nice. Okay, so without further delay, I will now stop this part. Environment, that's about it, right? Yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah, we want to save the environment, and energy communities is part of the puzzle. So now I will start presenting the slides again. Just a minute. So very interesting responses from people out there. Thank you so much for sharing your ideas. So welcome back. I now will introduce you super briefly to the agenda today. So what are we going to see? Today, after this little welcome and warm up, by us, ICLEI Local Governments for Sustainability. By the name, my name is Oscar. Maybe you already know me from the previous sessions. I'm going to spend some minutes, as I see some people have been here already for the third time. I'm not going to spend that much time into introducing what is Empower and what is this leadership program, and we'll keep the time better for the expert to show about community engagement, and activation, also about incentives, what we were just discussing. Then we'll have a little pause for you to get coffee. Then we will learn again about practical cases. This case would be also the Irish pilot. We'll be talking about the concepts of diffusion of sustainability and scaling deep. This sounds quite abstract, but it's actually really interesting, and you will understand when you see this. Then we have some best practices on recommendations on energy communities and data sharing from the workshops that the University of College Cork conducted in the project. And we're going to end on this connection between social dimension and technology development. So how can one inform the other? So that's what we're going to see today. Super quick introduction again to the Empower project. This is a project that started 2 years ago. We are now in the second year, finishing it and starting for the third one. We are 28 participants from 13 different countries. We have the frontrunner pilots in Ireland, in Greece, but also in Austria and in Portugal. And we have also some early adopters that were going to be the ones who first replicate, let's say, the different technologies, but also the social approaches that this project has developed. And today, you are also joining this leadership program because you potentially could be also a new replicator, a new early adopter. So that's basically what this data-driven energy community leadership program is about. So we want to equip you with ideas, with knowledge, and to sparkle motivation as well to kickstart this concept of data-driven energy communities that is centered in the citizen. So this is quite some of the benefits. You can connect with other people that are interested also in this very topic. You can learn from experiences from people on the ground. You can learn about social science and humanities methodologies. This is exactly the model that talks about it. And last but not least, this model is called balancing the technological innovation with social engagement in digital energy communities, or data-driven energy communities, how we call it. So that's it. This is the model. I'm going to read I'll introduce you to the speakers today that will be sharing knowledge with us. So this is just the order as they appeared. It is no preference. I started with Sir Adam here. Dr. Adam actually is a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Basel. He specializes in just energy transitions, but also energy poverty and community engagement in renewable energy systems. He's an EU Climate Pact ambassador, and he has experience in co-creation, cooperation between different sustainability initiatives. We also have Dr. Iliana Schubert from the University of Basel as well. She works as a senior researcher at the Sustainability Research Group at the University of Basel. She works in sustainable mobility research at the Zurich University of Applied Sciences. Dr. Schubert works inter- and transdisciplinary to understand and actively shape sustainability transitions. And then we have Dr. Annika Schor. Annika is a senior researcher in the Sustainability Research Group at the University of Basel. Her research addresses sustainability transformations in the fields of energy, climate, and mobility, with a focus on governance, behavioral change, and social innovation. She also leads the Sustainable Future Research Network at the University of Basel. So these are going to be the speakers who give the first part of the session, and then the second part of the session is going to be led by the following. Deirdre, as you may recall from the first webinar, she is the general manager at the Dingle Hub, and she represents the Irish pilot in Empower. She's skilled in multi-stakeholder and community engagement and contributes significantly to advancing Ireland's transition to a low-carbon society by empowering citizens and communities. We have also Dr. Julia Blanc. She's a behavioral psychologist in the University College Cork, and the research bridges psychology, technology to model human behavior in the energy sector. Her work centers on citizen engagement in energy communities and the integration of behavioral models into technologies. And last but not least, we have Dr. Alexandra Reves. She is a research fellow at Marey in the University College Cork, and she is the vice chair of the Coast Action Shift. She has a PhD in geography, and her current research work is on climate justice, grassroots climate action, and promoting the role of social sciences and humanities with climate research. Alexandra is also a member of the International Energy Agency Users TCP program on Empowering All task force. So this is our speakers today, and with further delay, I will let our first set of speakers to start with the first module, Balancing Technological Innovations and Social Engagement in Digital Energy Communities. So the floor is yours, and you can share the screen.
Good morning, everyone. So I'll start with talking a little bit on this. Thank you very much for the nice introduction, Oscar. My name is Adam Hearn from the University of Basel. Together with my colleagues, Liana Schubert and Annika Storer, we work in the Sustainability Research Group. And really, our focus is on trying to look at engagement, activation, incentivization for citizens across the European Union in renewable energy communities. So next slide, please.
It's actually not moving. Just unshare for 1 second. Don't know why it's not moving. So it's a dirty one.
This tends to happen, no worries. We have those problems also in the first and second webinar. And for the people who joined the policy session also, we had some technical issues.
Now it's working.
Right.
Can you see it?
No.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
So let me reshare. This might be a Teams issue. Okay. Oh, it's
okay. Apologies about that. As I say, sometimes the technology is a little bit iffy, but I'll do my best to catch up as quick as I can because I'm aware of the time. So yes, we're going to be going through, I'm first of all going to talk to you a little bit about the empirical evidence base, so the information where we got it from, our methods, and then I'm going to go into actual members. So how do members engage and what makes them want to become members of an energy community in the first place? And then we're going to look, so also on that note, I should say that there's at the moment close to 11,000 renewable energy communities around Europe, and this is growing really rapidly. So we're expecting that number of citizens that are in the renewable energy communities to go up. At the same time, of course, a vast number of people across Europe aren't members of an energy community. So we've also looked at them. We're going to quickly look at some of the innovative incentives for participation in energy communities. And at the very end, we'll give you some takeaway messages from this part of the presentation. Moving on to the next slide, please. Yeah, so the empirical evidence base. We did a number of different things. Our aim really was to try and understand the reasons and the preferences of citizens to actively participate in the energy system. This is not just in terms of co-production of energy, so engagement in RECs. This might also be through prosumership, but mainly through actually being a joint member of something where it's being collectively produced, but also looking at flexibility and the automation of energy demand patterns. And here we're talking about how people might choose that they want to change their energy behavior in order to make sure that there is some flexibility in the system. We conducted interviews with each of the pilot sites. I won't talk too much about the pilot sites because I'm aware that if you're already here, you may have heard some of the previous sessions about the NPower pilot site, but if not, it will be covered throughout the rest of the session today. But we have 6 pilot sites across Europe. We also then conducted, and this is the big thing, a multinational survey. This was in 7 countries. Apart from the 6 pilot site countries, so Austria, Greece, Hungary, Ireland, Portugal, and Spain, we also included Switzerland here, and that's partly because, of course, we're based in Switzerland at the University of Basel. This was asked to around 1,000 people per country. So we have quite a large data set that was gathered. Data collection happened back last year in February. And the quotas were that it would be 50% male and 50% female and in 5 different age categories. So it was also representative of the different countries around Europe. However, we didn't just stop there. We conducted another survey, which was kind of based on the same one, but was slightly more tailored towards members of renewable energy communities. And this was handed out in the different pilot sites in Greece, in Portugal, and also in Austria. And we had a number of respondents to that. It took place a little bit later, but the data is much more tailored towards finding out about members and what members think. Next slide, please. Oh, has it got stuck again?
Yeah, unfortunately it has.
I want to unshare and reshare. Sometimes these digital tools need some oil to grease the slides to make sure that they go on.
Okay. Let's try this. Let's hope this works.
Great, I can see that now. That's perfect. So here's some of the information from the survey that was carried out within the pilot site. So this is for members of renewable energy communities. And they were basically being asked here really to say what it was that made them in the first place think about joining. What was their whole idea behind that? Why did they engage? What are the benefits for them in joining? And really this varied quite considerably depending on the country. As you can see in front of you, you have a number of different elements being shown, and basically going through this, is it going to animate? I don't think it is. No, we've lost the animation again.
Don't really know how to improve this. We can go through it like this.
Yeah, if you put it up, I can just explain that really the whole idea of a lower energy price, which came up earlier on. If you can try and share the slides again in a second, because we can't see any at the moment. Some of you mentioned this as being a really good reason to join an energy community. Well, this was indeed the case for people in both Greece and Portugal, where this was identified as an important thing. But social cohesion was also seen as important. I think there might have been 1 or 2 people that mentioned that earlier on the Slido. And again, here we're looking at Austrian and Portuguese people that mentioned this as a major benefit. Local economic development was seen as an important reason in Greece. And all of them felt that energy autonomy was very, very important, and that we needed to consider energy autonomy as a primary reason for wanting to engage in an energy community. Improving energy knowledge and increasing energy knowledge was also seen in Austria as being something that was important. We're not on full screen at the moment.
No, I know. I left it off full screen so that I can simply jump from slide to slide.
Great, as long as you can still jump to the other slides, that's cool. So from the interviews of the different pilot sites that we had, we noticed that, yes, there is engagement going on, and we asked how this engagement takes place. Information workshops are seen as being crucial. Co-creation is also happening in some of them. Written information is also being provided, and social media campaigns and the use of community apps is also important. Moving on to the next one. However, and this is really important that you note that this is coming from the actual pilot sites themselves, they noticed that there were barriers. They perceive barriers to membership of the communities. Firstly, they note that there's a lack of information out there, and that it's very difficult to get the information out there to reach the general public and to make sure that people are aware. Secondly, there's a lack of capacity, and this is quite curious, is there's a large desire from the general public to take part in renewable energy communities. There's a huge demand, but this demand can't be met currently because capacity is already full. So taking on new members simply isn't possible in all the cases. Again, if one was to think of the energy community that we have on the island of Chalki in Greece, this is certainly a problem because we don't have more production that's possible currently of energy. And so if you take on more members, you have to divide the current amount of energy by more households, and it dilutes the benefits to the members. So they're simply not able to take on more people. But there are also significant legislative barriers. And we see that in the case of Hungary, where the idea of people simply setting up an energy community for citizens is a little bit more alien, also partly to do with the regulatory landscape, because energy is heavily subsidized for citizens. So moving on from there, what about for those that aren't members of an energy community? Am I leaving this on to you? I think that might be easier.
This is exactly where I take over, exactly. So let's look at non-members of renewable energy community. And this is the bit where we're going to look at the results again of the multinational survey, so the really large scale survey. So we looked at three elements. So we're going to talk about three elements here. First of all, was there interest in renewable energy communities? And we can say that with a really huge, big, fat yes, there was. Then we're going to talk about how do people want to be engaged. We looked at three elements here. We looked at engagement levels, so how often do they want to be engaged? Engagement forms, what activities do they want to be engaged in? And again, we're going to look at this flexibility of demand. So what kind of levels of automation or adjustment would they be okay with? Would they be interested in? And so that would be the third thing, right? So are they open for flexibility of electricity use and how? So regarding how people want to be engaged, we looked at focusing. So there was animation here, so you wouldn't be seeing all of this, but focus on the first bit, the levels of engagement. So we asked them we gave them 4 different levels of engagement: yearly, quarterly, monthly, and weekly. And you can see from the fat green box around the monthly that this was their most preferred option. And then the second level down, the quarterly, was the second preferred option. And we always compared our options against a reference level because we ran a discrete choice experiment. And the reference level here would be yearly, so it's always the lowest level. But they also had the option to reject all of the options here and say, no, I want to go with the status quo. I don't actually want to be with an energy community. So what I'm showing you here and what I'm discussing here are really the results that are just focusing on those members or those people, sorry, that wanted to be engaged. How did they want to be engaged? So those that rejected the status quo. So monthly and then quarterly. Regarding forms of engagement, we looked at first option being co-designing solutions with others. Second, receiving information and personalized feedback. Third, participate in games and competitions. Fourth, doing activities to strengthen the neighborhood. And the fifth, which was also our reference level, which was investment with financial returns. And this was the only preference that they chose on kind of a general level. So here we put all countries together and we did an analysis looking across the countries. What are the general patterns? Now let's look at country differences. And again, we're going to go through the same things, but you can already see. So we looked at 7 countries and you can see that for looking at the levels of engagement, so how often people want to be engaged, people generally stayed with the same pattern. So the monthly engagement pattern was the most preferred pattern in Austria, Greece, Ireland, Spain, and Portugal. And only Hungary and Switzerland were actually open or preferring the yearly option. For forms of engagement, the investment was the preferred option for all the different countries, but members or non-members, better participants in Greece were also open to receive information and personalized feedback and to participate in games and competitions. So finally, looking at the flexibility and automation. Here we provided 4 choices. The first choice was you occasionally monitor and adapt your electricity consumption according to renewable production. This is also our reference levels, the base level. Then the second was you regularly actively monitor, so not just occasionally, you regularly and actively monitor and then adapt your electricity use. Going up a step, automated electricity consumption, but with opt-out. And we provided an example saying washing machine and heat pump run according to renewable production. But you could always opt out of this. And then our fourth option was automation without opt-out. So really being fully automated. And you can see the most preferred choice across all the countries was the automation with opt-out as an option. Now looking at the country differences, you can see slight differences. So you can see that Spain and Portugal strongly preferred the automation with opt-out. So still our big fat green box. And that in Austria, Greece, Ireland, and Switzerland, there was a strong preference for this, but this wasn't significant. So it was in the right direction, but it wasn't actually significant. And then you can also see that in Hungary, people actually opted for the automation without opt-out, so for the fully automated service. So those are our different levels. Now let's look at barriers of engagement for people that are not currently renewable energy community members. So here we had a whole list of about 12 barriers, and what I'm presenting to you are the strongest 6 barriers that came up. And this is again as a whole, so looking across all the different countries. So the first 2 choices are related to being knowledgeable about renewable energy communities and knowing or being aware that there are any in your vicinity. And those were the strongest barriers mentioned. Then the third barrier down was for financial reasons. And here I said this was across countries, but the percentages are actually the variations across countries that I put on the side so that you have some sort of knowledge rather than me putting up all the country differences. You have some idea, okay, these are the percentage bands. Then the fourth and the fifth barrier were more related to personal issues on the level of not trusting people within the neighborhood or also lacking time. And the sixth one was very much skill specific, so not feeling that you have the right kind of skills to engage in an endeavor where you could become a renewable energy community member. So let's move on to understanding what innovative incentives could look like. So looking at, we've seen that there are some differences, and we've looked across country differences at the moment. What we're now going to be looking at is whether there are actually different societal groups that might be attracted to different engagement strategies. So we ran a clustering analysis, it's called the latent class analysis, to understand within our large sample, so again, this is the multi-European survey, have we got different segments that are interested in different, that have different preferences for these different engagement strategies, but also levels and automation levels. And indeed, we found 4 different segments. And the largest segment is segment 4, which we called automation focused with opt-out. And this segment 4 is 63% of our large participant sample. And they prefer automation with opt-out, and they're willing to engage quarterly, but really only invest. So there are general patterns that we found in our data. But they are very open to engage. Now, they're our youngest group, and they're relatively balanced. 49% of them are women. They are from the higher income spectrum, and they're well educated. And in terms of Rogers Innovation Adoption Classes, I don't know if you're familiar with them, they are in the earlier innovation, early adopter segment and early majority. So they're really the ones that would be the first ones to probably join energy communities, to engage in energy citizenship in any kind of way. So I'm going to have to jump onto the second slide, because here I had blocked out each segment so that it opens separately, and you will see all of the segments now together. But let's look at segment 3. So let's go anti-clockwise, and let's look at segment 3. So there we call them the engaged but inflexible. They're willing to engage on a monthly basis, but in different forms. So these people, this is a 15% part of our segment, of our whole participant sample. They're open to co-design and information and kind of neighborhood activities. So information was about receiving personal feedback. So they're really open to most of the other forms of engagement. They prefer occasional monitoring, so they want to do the monitoring themselves and adapt it. So they don't really want automation. And here we're looking at a segment that's kind of middle-aged, still more or less balanced in gender. We have 52% women. They have, again, they have a higher income, and they're well educated. And they're also within the kind of innovators, early adopters, early majority. That's kind of very similar. Then our second segment, so going up, this is the orange segment. We call them the undecided and unmotivated. So there's 13% of our whole total sample, and they have no clear preferences for or against the status quo. So really they are undecided. So they are a group that need to be persuaded on the basis of the right kind of benefits for them, of why they should choose it. So they would also choose the most basic levels of participation. So this would be the financial one. So the reference level being the financial one, but then also the yearly level of engagement, so very low level, and also the occasional monitoring. So very, very low level engagement. This is a very mixed group, so it's hard to determine who exactly is in that, because they come from all ages. They're in the medium to higher income classes. They're again still highly or well educated, not highly educated. They're well educated, so they're kind of in the, they all have secondary education, and some of them might have like degrees, but not all of them have degrees. And yeah, so they are more, here you can see regarding the Roger Innovation classes, actually a lot of them are in the laggards. So they're in the last group that most likely won't be persuaded, but might be persuaded, because there is also some early or late majority members in here. And now going to our final segment, segment 1, the blue one, are the status quo defenders, 9% of our sample. These people are not interested in taking part, and they prefer to be non-members, so they really prefer the status quo, and they didn't they weren't really interested in any of the engagement levels, activities, anything that we presented, apart from receiving information and personalized feedback. They're the oldest segment, so 31% of them are above 65. There's a larger majority of women here. They come from lower income bands, lower education levels, and they are in those last final groups of the Roger Innovation classes, 59%. So, putting this all together, what can we learn from this regarding engagement, activation, incentivization? So the really good news is people want to engage. 70 to 80% of our segment want to be part of energy communities, or at least are very open towards becoming energy community members. But what we see, there's a lack of knowledge and a lack of visibility of the local renewable energy communities. The preference patterns are very similar across the 7 European countries, with very few differences, as you have seen. And most people prefer kind of low levels of engagement and financial return. However, there is a segment in there that is open to different kind of engagement levels, and they might bring other people on board once they are part of this. So really consider offering different packages of engagement to capture some diversity and don't be afraid to start that process, because when you build communities, you might pull in other people because of that process. So really do offer different kind of levels of engagement. We called it engagement plus, regarding including, you know, co-designing workshops, but providing different kinds of information, personalized feedback, and also activities that can build the neighborhood. So these are things that you mentioned earlier on as well. Regarding automation, this is generally supported, but it should be kind of a no-frills, very basic level of automation, where they also don't need to have a lot of involvement in this. However, also be aware of perceived barriers and try and counteract them. So first of all, we already know there's this lack of knowledge, but then the other barriers that were mentioned were regarding financing. So think about how you can support non-members or people that might be interested but don't feel like they have the financing to kind of follow this through, what kind of packages you might offer for that, or how you can support them. And then also think about building trust within communities, and also providing some basic skill workshops around energy communities, things that they need to know so that they feel they're able to make that commitment, or that take that next step. And really important, this is our final message, when you communicate, really highlight the benefits. So the benefits that were mentioned were energy or autonomy, social cohesion, increased know-how regarding energy issues, lower electricity price. If this is applicable, this isn't applicable in every country. We know this for example, in Hungary, this would currently not be the case. So you have to be mindful of that. And then also local economic development was a benefit that was perceived. And again, here you need to decide whether this would be applicable for your case. So that concludes our session. I will stop sharing the screen so I can see you and you can ask me questions. But before I do that, I just wanted to point these things out. So we have 2 deliverables out that bring together loads of the findings that we presented here, and also a report on an app, and the QR codes will link you to that. So thank you so much, and sorry for the technique failing.
No worries. Thank you very much. It was a bunch of information, but you made it digestible. So thank you. And yes, I open also the floor for people who joined that would like to ask themselves, the experts who conducted these interviews, to don't be shy, and please, either if you can type your question on the chat, or also you can, yeah, just open your mic and start asking questions. But maybe I also would like to ask, in this information that you share with us, you shared these ways of engaging, and I was just wondering, yeah, maybe ourselves, if we were going to join any community, what would be the most preferred way of contacting? For myself, I would say monthly engagement through a newsletter would work. But I don't know others. Julen, I don't know if you have any comments on that. Which further recommendation of contacting would you like to receive?
Yeah, monthly update sounds not too intrusive, but still good for updating. Yearly sounds maybe too far in apart in time, so then people would forget about about this. So I think monthly is just right.
So,
Yeah.
Oscar, are you asking how to contact people that are not in energy communities and how to reach out to them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In one of the slides, you were commenting on the how to engage people, no?
Yeah.
And the thing.
So I think there's different ways of going about this, right? So if you wanted to get more members within your community, you could just kind of prepare some low-level engagement events, which I'm sure we're going to hear about from Dingle later on as well, where you can you kind of mix food with, you know, some information giving or even some skill giving regarding you know, how to understand your energy bills, or you know, what kind of things an energy community could offer. So different kind of little bits of information without overwhelming people, I think. And it's always nice to package them in different ways. So something that I learned about very recently was really nice. Was a workshop where they specifically also offered things for children, and found a very playful way to show children about energy loads by using Lego and having them build different load profiles with Lego, and linking these to different white goods, for example. And that meant that, you know, children started talking to their parents while they were doing that. So those kind of things in a playful way, just to approach these topics, because as we saw, people don't feel very well informed, and they feel like they lack the skills. And I suspect a lot of the skills are also related to not understanding your energy bill, not knowing what you can do. But I can hand this over to Adam. He will probably have some more ideas.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're setting up an energy community, if you're looking for members, the really great news from this research is that most people are very, very open. They really do want to take part. So you have a market out there. If it was me and I was going to set up one, the first set of people that I would target are those that are slightly more educated and slightly wealthier, because we know that they're in the group that's most likely to want to become part of an energy community. But you can tailor it further. So if you then realize that you're more interested in getting hold of families, you want to make sure that there's more families represented. What about the children? Ileana was talking about engaging them with Lego. There's another project that we looked at where they realized that the families were missing, and so they put on an event, a free cinema event for the children. And while the children were in the cinema in a safe space, it was a free event. The adults could have the conversations and have a nice glass of wine and discuss what was going to happen and how they were going to try and proceed with an energy community. So it is possible. There are a myriad of different ways that you can engage with people, and it can build up. I would say, really, don't be scared of taking the first steps. That's crucial. The other thing that I would like to point out from my perspective is this whole idea of energy automation, which felt very alien to me as a researcher and as a citizen to start with, because we were asking people basically if they would be happy to relinquish control of some of the machines in their home. And I thought, in my case, would I be happy to fill my washing machine, switch it on, and for it not to go on, for somebody else to determine when it operates based on renewable energy? And my initial feeling was, I don't know if I would be comfortable with that. Having conducted the research and seen that lots of people are comfortable with this, so long as there is a way of overriding it, I kind of feel, no, I would also be in this override group now. But it's really curious how people are quite happy to give away some of the autonomy of energy use in their homes if they know that the energy that's going to be used is then going to be renewable energy, which is locally produced and is going to save them money as well. It's a win-win-win.
Thank you, Adam. And there's a comment here in the chat. I can read it, but I don't know if the Dr. Mario Fashan would like to also intervene.
Hello, yes, I wasn't sure whether you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you very much.
Just wanted to share some experience from the field, operating a 300 participants renewable energy community. And as I wrote, we're struggling most with the problems our participants have to join, and these are rather simple things. People don't understand what their smart meter ID is. They are struggling with filling a form or signing the form and don't knowing where to hand the form in, and so forth. So I think it's crucial to make the process of joining super simple. And also we support the people, because 50% kind of the people that are approaching me to join, they don't have a clue how to join and what to do, and so it nearly needs us to sit next to the people in their homes and helping them with the process of joining, and then they are willing and they like to do it. And also what we do and what we found very helpful is we are giving the participants an analysis, a rather simple analysis on a 3-month basis about their already reached savings or about their increased earnings through their participation in the renewable energy group. So these are the experiences I made in the past 12 months here in Austria.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mario. Yeah, that was awesome. Really great to hear from a community. I was going to ask you, which country? It's in Austria. Great. It's really fascinating. I was going to say, this kind of echoes some of the research that we conducted from the Portuguese side, where the bureaucracy of signing up a new member, those procedures, they're not automated. And they were talking of 7 to 9 hours worth of procedures per member in order to sign up a new member. So streamlining those processes, making it as easy as possible for the member, but then also on the community side is what can be done to make sure that those processes are as simple as possible. How much of this can we automate so that it is a standard form, so we know exactly what we're looking for? And do we need to have people in the community that are going out and that are saying, well, look, I'm going to help you. I will talk you through this. Do we need energy advisors that will actually do that? And it may be that we do. But thank you. That was really, really great to hear that as an example.
Yes, thank you very much.
And I just wrote in the chat, but if there's people that have another example from another country maybe, or there's no example and you have not joined an energy community or not, or you're thinking of starting one, or not even thinking, but just some questions, feel free to also open your mic. Everybody can speak, or also you can type in the chat. So this is the moment for you. But if that's not the case, we can. How do you feel? Would you like to take the break now and then we come back in few minutes to start the second part. I will speak to our audience to good. Then we are going to have a 5-minute break. Thank you so much for the speaker today who shared with us these insights. And then it's 10:53. It says 5 minutes, but let's make it 7, and we reconvene at 11. Okay, 11 a.m. We are back here. Thank you for this first session. See you soon. Hello, hello. So it's 11 and we are slowly coming back. So I would like to know our next speaker is around. Didri, can you hear me?
Yeah, one example.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, great.
Yes.
So just to prevent any technical issue, there's no problem with the slides. Can you share them and share your screen?
What kind of
Mm.
thoughts, conclusions, etc. we
Can you
take
see
from
that?
that example? So they
And
can
now it's yes, but now it's not in presenting
And try
mode.
to go to slideshow. Yeah.
Great. Okay.
That works.
Yes, I think, and I think most people have came back. Maybe 1 minute, and you can start. But yes, we can see your screen.
I just skipped a moment. So.
And in the meantime, just a few comments. So we saw in the first time about community engagement, about different incentives. University of Basel conducted this great research, this survey, and its information available in the deliverables that, of course, I will share later as well when I contact participants. But now we're going to look into more practical information and the insights from one of our pilots in Ireland. So with this really small introduction, I leave the floor for Deirdre to tell us about diffusion of sustainability and scaling deep concepts. What is this about?
Good morning, everyone. And yes, I have two concepts to introduce this morning. They are concepts, but they are grounded in practical experience. And as I listened to the previous speakers and to the questions that came in afterwards, I suppose a lot of our experience echoes what we heard in the first session. So to start, diffusion of sustainability. What am I talking about in that? Maybe if I give a little bit of background for maybe those who weren't in the first webinar. My name is Deirdre Devalish and I am manager of a community enterprise called the Dingle Hub. We're a not-for-profit community enterprise. And we were established to, I suppose, create an ecosystem that would enable local economic development in the areas of sustainability. And the role that we find ourselves in is that of empowering individuals and local communities to take action for climate change and biodiversity, to take practical action at a very hyper local level. But our starting point was with energy. And back in 2018, we undertook an energy master plan. And that was funded by the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland. It is a structure whereby energy communities can form in Ireland. You form a sustainable energy community, an SEC, and then there is funding provided to enable you to undertake an energy master plan. That allows for a level of engagement with the community as you work to draw in the data on the energy use from the community. You're looking for people's, well, back in 2018, we were looking for their energy bills and for them to fill out a survey. It's a little bit easier now with the introduction of smart meters, where we can explain to people that they can consent to give access to their smart meter data. But however, we undertook that energy master plan, and in 2019, the main results of that were that we understood that 54% of the peninsula's energy use related to transport, but also 49% of the emissions on the peninsula related to agriculture. And that really gave us a good sense of where we needed to drill further and determine what actions were needed. In parallel to us undertaking the Energy Master Plan, our distribution systems operator, ESB Networks, who is also a partner on this project, on the NPower project, they undertook a project on the peninsula from 2018 to 2021. And that engaged over 50 citizens in energy trials. So people were given solar PVs, battery management systems. 5 houses were retrofitted and had air source heat pumps installed. And 15 people had the opportunity to trial electric vehicles. That was very much a catalyst project for engagement for us, because it brought people to the table. They could see, yes, let's get involved in this project. We might get a solar PV system, or we might get to trial an EV for a year. So people were very eager to do that. And that allowed us then to begin to build the networks that have, I suppose, started this diffusion of sustainability. Because as you build trust and relationships with people through projects, they become, I suppose, motivated to start their own initiatives as well. I'll give a little example of that. When we finished our Energy Master Plan, we found we needed ways to find a broader group to work with. Say we were a group of about 6 people at the time working on this. We needed to broaden that out, so we ran a community energy mentor course, and one of the local farmers attended that community energy mentor course, and he also became an ambassador for the ESB Networks Dingle project, and he really loved learning about energy, learning about what the future needed to look like. And he thought to himself as he went through that course, he said, we have 130 farmers here on the peninsula. Could they be a sustainable energy community in their own right? And he asked the SCAI, would that be possible? It hadn't been done before, but they thought, why not? So those 130 dairy farmers established their own SEC. And what we really learned from that one is that that group, that cohort, had a common language and a set of common measures. So getting to action for them, getting to really understand their energy use and getting to action was a lot more straightforward than maybe your traditional energy community, which might have a mix of public and domestic buildings, some retail and maybe some community buildings. So everyone's looking at different measures. Farmers generally all needed the same measures, and that brought us forward then into understanding, well, if they're all, and the number one recommended measure was heat exchange, but at the time in Ireland, the grant system for solar PV was extremely attractive, and so the first measure undertaken was solar PV, but we felt, why not come together, have strength in numbers in this, and go for collective purchasing on a solar PV tender. So they did, and that was very beneficial for the farmers. They saved very considerably on their systems doing that. But the one thing we were able to do then, we had a cohort of early adopters who did that. When they had their installations done, and this was spoken to earlier, this way of getting information out to people to kind of try to informally educate people. We would host open days on those farms, and those farmers who had not yet installed would come to those open days. And it's very different to looking at maybe payback measures and return on investment on paper versus coming onto a farm and looking at it on screen and saying, there's Dinny now, and you see all of his energy bills he installed in December. His energy bills were fully covered in December and January because of the size of the system he had, because of, yes, there was spillage out to the grid, but the payment he was getting back was covering what he had to take from the grid as well. So that really, I suppose, ignited people to say, this makes sense. I can understand now how it makes sense on our farms. And we have gone on. When we talk about diffusion here, We have gone on to work with them on circular economy initiatives. We have gone on to work with them on local food initiatives. So it has established those networks and that strong social cohesion that came out very strongly earlier too. I see that as the huge benefit of all of these. So that was on the agricultural side. On the transport side, we began working with our local operator, our local public transport operator, to see could there be new bus services on the peninsula, and they were very happy to oblige and come in and help to design those services with all the local community groups to get them really right and fit for purpose for local use. And we have some lovely charts of, you know, the increase in demand year on year for those services. And 2 of them now are electric vehicle buses. But it's all been on the strength of engaging with those agencies, engaging with the community, finding the solutions that are right, that become embraced and that are then a success story. When we looked at how well the farmers' sustainable energy community worked, we then said, well, the other major industry on our peninsula, it is a very popular tourist region. It is tourism. And we thought, well, let's establish a tourism and hospitality SEC. Let's take the model that the farmers did and let's look at another sectoral sustainable energy community. But this time the farmers were entirely voluntary, with, you know, a lot of support from Dingle Hub, because that is our mission, is to support and enable and empower individuals and groups locally. But we said, you know what, we need to accelerate this. Time is ticking on now. We're getting closer to 2030. We have national agencies who will have an interest in them. So we sat them down and we partnered with our National Tourism Agency, Fáilte Ireland. I live in a Gaeltacht Irish speaking region, so we have a local authority, Údarás na Gaeltachta, and we have our municipality, which is Kerry County Council. And the 3 of those partnered with us, and we put 2 paid roles in place for this sustainable energy community. And that was the champion, or the equivalent of Dinny and the farmers who rallied everyone to come together, somebody who knew everyone in their sector, and the coordinator for this project. That person that we spoke about earlier that went out to every business one-to-one to help them to read their energy bills. Like, it is so important, that initial hand-holding piece, and we really found that that was absolutely vital, and we were lucky to partner, as I said, with our agencies to fund that role, and that is still in place today. And then I suppose the ESB Networks project ended, but we wanted to continue with all of this engagement and momentum locally, and we were delighted to partner then on the NPower project, which has enabled us to continue this work. And last year, through that project, we were able to, DC6 Technologies were able to develop the Citizen Renewable Platform. And we're looking at all of the work that Anne as coordinator has done with these businesses. And we're saying, how can we move this onto, you know, a data platform now, and how can we encourage people to use that platform? And again, it's been very much one-on-one, and if people had a fear of their energy bills, they had even more of a fear of logging onto a platform, registering, putting up their data. But we mentioned it earlier as well, it's been a co-creation process. You know, it might have been too complex, the registration at the start. We worked through all the bugs in the system with the developers. We got live feedback from those that were trying to use it to make it as streamlined as we possibly can. Are we there yet? No, there's certainly more work to do, but we are making, you know, significant advances on this. And I suppose very recently, Dingle Peninsula won a national award and was named Ireland's Greenest Place. Now, this is a wonderful opportunity for us to say, listen, everyone, you know, if we have your data here on this platform, if we know when you've installed solar PV, if we know when you've managed your waste, if we've collected all that data, then we have the backup, we have the credentials for awards like this to sustain that, I suppose, culture of being Ireland's greenest place, and to prove it with data. So it's a real opportunity for us to advance the use of that data tool. When we look at the diffusion of sustainability and how it has all happened, it's all happened through people getting involved with different initiatives, undertaking their own and driving them forward as well. But what it has led to is here, I suppose, we have a very large bank of historical data sets, which helps us as we move forward into new projects, and we have a very strong network of local individuals and communities, and that social cohesion is so important as people are used to working together. It's easy to pick up the phone and say, oh, we might have a trial here for some EV charging, would you be interested in this? There's a trust there that says, well, I worked with you in an initiative before this and that was successful, so yes, I'd be open to that again. And that diffusion of sustainability, we would like to see it continue and go on and on. You know, as we're coming to the end of NPower now, we've been successful in a new project for Inatrek, and that's going to support us, you know, leveraging the work of NPower to look at community-led solar PV farm, and that is starting. Initial talks and high-level feasibilities are starting on that already. But that's, I suppose, in a nutshell, what diffusion of sustainability is. I'm going to move on now to the other concept of scaling deep, and it's coming from this diffusion of sustainability, and it's really coming from this sustained effort in one place over a long period of time, and what actually happens when you do that. So we started to step back and say, well, what are we doing here? What is this? And what we are pioneering, I suppose, or what we're calling it, is scaling deep. And it's a process of regional development that fuses enterprise, economic and community development, where the state, the spectrum of enterprise types and communities in which they are embedded pursue enduring growth and sustainable transition in an approach that is rooted in the assets of the place. Now, over the next few slides, I'll try and bring that to life and what we mean by it. But it really did mean for us looking around and seeing what were the assets of this place. And, you know, we have some unique assets to us. It's, I suppose, geographical, natural environment, landscape. Different areas will have different assets, but it's very important to understand those. We have inherited assets. I mentioned we're in a Gaeltacht region. We have the Irish language, which I suppose there's a huge culture around that does draw a lot of visitors as well, and it's a very positive asset that we have in the place. For this generation, you know, it's our local infrastructure. I mentioned the public transport buses earlier. It's our local enterprises. The latent assets, I think, is where the hub has worked most, and that is the untapped knowledge. It's the tapping in to that local knowledge. It's that building of a bottom-up approach and working really hard to develop a vision for the long-term future of it there. And that is, you know, that is a long, difficult process to get buy-in from all people and all community groups in an area, but that is what we are working towards. It is identifying those leaders in the community, and it's giving them a platform to work within their own communities, because it's not just the Dingle Peninsula community, it's a community of communities. It's the farmers, it's the people, you know, in the coastal regions, the communities there, it's the tourism, it's the people in the different villages. One village may not identify with another and they may only be a kilometre apart, but it's understanding all that and building the bridges between all those communities so there's understanding and trust. So we've used the structure of the hub for that, and that, I suppose, is we become a convener. And we work with, you know, state agencies, we work with local government, we work with enterprise outside the area, and we connect them to the people in the place. That's the individual workers, the enterprises here, the communities and representatives, and, you know, the local institutional players. So what we see is it makes the local available to the global and vice versa, the global accessible to the local. It's that bridge, it's that convening piece that we do. This slide, I suppose, it is that piece of a defined place and a sustained time period and a focus on it. And it gives the breadth and the depth to the model. I'm going to finish off with just one story of how it works practically. In the early days when we were working on the ESB Networks project, two local brothers, they were domestic electrical contractors, won a tender to install batteries as part of that project. And because they worked with our distribution systems operator and one of our energy suppliers, and they got trained up on the job, they learned the direction of travel. They saw what was coming down the line, and they pivoted their business to turn it to focus on the installation of solar PV, battery management systems, and electric vehicle chargers. And since then, since 2019, they have grown to employ 20 people locally and provide regular work for over 30 contractors. And they are nationwide now, as opposed to having, I suppose, their work or their customer base just on the peninsula. And they're the opportunities when I speak to local economic development. It's identifying those opportunities and creating that ecosystem, and that's what we have learned along the way. So I'll finish it there and see if there are any questions on that.
Thank you, Deirdre. Actually, we have 2 questions for you.
Mhm.
I will read them just for practicity. The first one is, can you estimate what share of costs the farmers are saving by their engagement in the energy communities? And second, it's were participants that invested in photovoltaics or batteries conducting a cost-benefit analysis? The experience of Dr. Mario Fashang is that many people invest because they are personally motivated, but maybe they do not conduct this cost-benefit analysis. So in the end, they build 2 large photovoltaic systems and install 2 large batteries, which in the end do not pay off.
Yeah. Batteries were not recommended in this case for the farmers. There were no grants for them. The energy consultants worked closely with them to show if they moved their milking times at the start and end of the day, they could make more use of the solar. Some have invested in electric quads to use that energy during peak times during the day as well. But yes, there was a cost benefit analysis. They know their payback period is less than 4 years for the farmers, but they had very significant grants here in Ireland. So the solar PV tender saved 20%, but there was also 60% grants. So it was very, very attractive offer for the farmers here, and they benefited from that. When we went to the tourism and hospitality sector, their grants weren't as significant, but their savings were more. Their savings were 40% when they came together to do it. Their farmers were a little more expensive because they had different roofs and scaffolding had to be moved around and all of that. But the savings were very significant. The tourism businesses are looking at a payback period of less than 2 years, and the farmers had a payback period of 4 years. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Great. Is there any other question? Now is the time, or we go to the next presentation? Today we're a bit shy, no worries. Thank you so much, Idre. I took my notes. It is very interesting what you're doing there. Both concepts of diffusion of sustainability and scaling deep, now they became clear. Now I'd like to invite our next expert speaker to share with us the insights on the best practices and recommendations about energy communities and data sharing. So that means Dr. Alexandra Reves, if you're out there, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Oscar. I'm just trying to share my screen so we can all see the slides, and hopefully they'll work as well for me as they did for Deirdre. So you can see those, right, Oscar?
Yes, you can see them. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Okay. So hi, everybody. My name is Alexandra Reves, and I'll be presenting today on some work that we also did in DIGAL. So a big shout out to everybody that participated in that, including Julia, Deirdre, Mario, Peter, Jonathan, Aoife, and Brian. So it was really sort of a team effort here in terms of the work that we've done around best practices and recommendations about energy communities. And really what we'll be talking about today is this fuzzy concept of data sharing in the context of DINGAL. So just to premise, and it's great that Deirdre already has presented some of the work, currently already achieved in DINGAL. DINGAL is part of one of the pilots in the Empower project, but significantly, it's what we call a front runner. So it already has extensive experience around setting up of energy communities, and has some experience of energy data sharing, and that is important in the context of what we're going to talk about, in terms of how communities perceive and look at routes for innovation around the idea of energy data sharing. So that's just a point to keep in mind there. Just to start in terms of what we mean by data sharing, and to provide some sort of benchmarks around Europe, around the whole idea of data sharing. So just to give a working definition, data sharing refers to practices of exchanging data linked to the energy system to enable certain things, including energy efficiencies, support for development of new energy services, and really to support, our goals toward decarbonization and a sustainable living. But when we sort of look at, this whole idea of data sharing across Europe, and the whole concept in itself of data sharing more generally, the Eurobarometer is a report that we were able to source, and it came out in 2020. And it's interesting for a number of reasons. It tells us, for example, that generally there's positive impact of digital technologies on society, economy, and quality of life. So in general, the public sees, digital technologies positively, with 75% of respondents thinking that most recent digital technologies have a positive impact on the economy. 67 think that they have a positive impact on their quality of life, and 64 believe that they have a positive impact on society. However, while they think that, technologies are positive, there are large differences in the perceptions across countries and between people of different ages and educational backgrounds. And, I think it's important here to highlight that Ireland, for example, is, tends to be generally more positive about digital technologies than other countries like Portugal or France or Hungary or Romania, which tends to be on the more negative side in terms of, how digital technologies impact their lives. And also, it's also important to see here, and I've included that there on the graph on the left, on the bottom left part, that while people see the benefit of data sharing around, improvement of medical research and care, or improvement of response to crisis situations such as natural disasters and terrorist attacks and epidemics, sharing data in terms of improving energy efficiencies seems to be a new concept, and there's still a lot of sort of uncertainty around that. So overall in Europe, just 24% of people believe that, they would be willing to share some of their personal information securely for the purposes of improving energy efficiency. So this is suggestive that there's still a lot of work to be done in this space, and this is why we kind of focused on this whole idea of data sharing, and we did that through sort of a methodological innovation, if you like, in terms of engaging people. We drew on some principles of deliberative democracy, so some ideas of citizens' juries or citizens' assemblies, to kind of invite people from Dingle to join us in a conversation about data sharing in Dingle. And the principles that we used that were important, and they're important to sort of highlight here, is that these were discussions that were very information and factually rich. And for that purpose, we had expert presentations to sort of give a neutral and information-rich, background to what data sharing is, what it looks like, what are the data protection mechanisms that are in place at the moment, etc. And we also had sort of the experiential approach to that as well, through testimonials from people who have already experienced data sharing in their daily life, that do that in the energy community in Dingle, and were able to provide their considerations, their lived experience, if you like, of data sharing. So we had 2 workshops in Dingle to sort of tease out this whole idea of data sharing. and they were day-long events, so resource intensive. The first workshop we had 11 people from the dairy farmers energy community and the tourism and hospitality energy community. So, as I said, people who already have experience participating within an energy community context. And it was largely a very exploratory phase of the work that we were doing, just in terms of, setting the scene, understanding where people were, understanding what are the sort of anchors and meaning and the stories that people want to tell and the questions that people want to ask around data sharing. But we moved into a second workshop, which was also a day-long workshop, where we started trying to consolidate some of these ideas, and we tried to consolidate them around 3 particular scenarios, which are, I'm going to kind of go through them very quickly with you in terms of some of the routes for innovation around data sharing in these particular scenarios. These emerged from, the exploratory phase of the workshop, and grid flexibility, which is the first scenario that I'm going to touch on, was really, a very strong sort of opportunity that the Dingle community, after that exploratory phase, felt was relevant for the context of Dingle in particular. So we kind of focused this. We had a sort of a scorecard, and on the left there you can see, a breakdown of what the different categories mean. So people includes the skills, the practices, the meaning and the behaviors and the expectations and the aesthetic concerns of the people in Dingle. Hardware and software, speaks of the technology and the devices, the products, the features, etc. The organization speaks about the institutional structures, the information flows, the codes and regulations that inform a space, and other is just any other emergent sort of, ideas that come across. So how we did this, again, we had our experts present their own idea and their own considerations around grid flexibility. And then within a group of 30 participants, again, dairy farmers and people from the tourism and hospitality energy community in Dingle, we kind of teased out, what grid flexibility means, and people individually, filled out these scorecards. And, some of the big themes that emerged are highlighted there. So in terms of people, there was a sort of a concern or a consideration that on-demand energy versus flexible energy requires, big behavioral change. And that, this essentially means a big relearning in terms of use in energy and for businesses as well. Interestingly, and this is very Dingle specific, the incentives for grid flexibility can be different for different end users. And for example, Dingle being a big tourist location, it's difficult to sort of communicate that that need for grid flexibility. It's sort of a third-party energy use, so that's complicated. And the use of storytelling in terms of, advancing the idea of great flexibility was really important, and speaks of, the idea of ability to adapt to changes in the energy supply to maintain a stable grid balance, which is, more and more important as we move on to renewables, and is a big consideration in the Dingle Peninsula. So in terms of the technology, this is important, and it connects to the sort of the story we want to tell people around grid flexibility, because technology can be an enabler to showcase, to measure, and to educate. If we have the benchmarks, if we have the data available to tell us how grid flexibility is going to be to make the Dingle Peninsula more resilient and more sustainable, that's sort of a case that you kind of can build on, and you can retell that to people, and you can create targets around that. So that's really important. Another element in terms of the software and hardware was the need for peer-to-peer to complement grid flexibility, and that's something that's, you know, at the moment not really available in Dingle. And also more critically in terms of, you know, looking at other opportunities, is this idea of energy rationing and self-sufficiency as opposed to just continuous growth. Which I think is really interesting, and it kind of emerges in different scenarios as well as we move on. So I'll just quickly move on to the next scenario. And this scenario speaks of asset optimization. And here, in terms of, you know, the people, it's really interesting that, you know, people are also an asset in the energy system, and you know how you can optimize collective engagement is a sort of a key concern for these participants, which is really interesting. And the use of demonstration to showcase the benefits of data sharing and engaging with communities is, you know, is seen to be very sort of intertwined within this sort of scenario. In terms of the hardware, software, you know, there's a need, I suppose, a growing need for more personalized levels of data granularity to, you know, to become available to people to really kind of optimize their assets. And I think that it was kind of mentioned by others before. Adam and Eliana were talking about streamlining the process of asset optimization and data sharing through artificial intelligence and automation. So that's a sort of a key route for innovation that's highlighted here. And, you know, in terms of organizations having trusted intermediaries and support services, again, you know, this is replicating some of the findings that were already showcased by Deirdre and already showcased by Adam. So that's really interesting there. Finally, we have vehicle to grid, and this is a really interesting scenario for Dingle. There's specific benefits to, you know, facilitating and to promoting vehicle to grid opportunities in rural areas, them being more car dependent than other areas in, you know, urban environments. But yet, you know, when we sort of presented this scenario to people, it was seen as very futuristic and expensive. And just in terms of the technology, it was seen as, you know, still very costly in some ways. And in terms of the organization, it was very interesting that people were talking about the whole idea of collective infrastructure as a priority versus private infrastructure. So when we think about vehicles or electric vehicles, we think about our own personal private cars. But in this instance, you know, people felt that was really important to focus on the collective mobility infrastructure, such as buses, bikes, and taxis as well, and that they would be a good and a great way to promote this whole idea of vehicle to grid as a route for innovation in the Dingle Peninsula. So I'm just aware of time, so I'm kind of skipping through these very quickly. Following all of this engagement and all of these deliberations, we went through a ballot process where we looked at the development of recommendations with all of the participants in the workshops. And that meant people anonymously voted online on a set of recommendations in terms of incentives to motivate data sharing, challenges to overcome, and, you know, this whole idea of the ethics or the sort of the framing of energy data sharing. So in terms of the incentives, the three most important ones were financial gain, the improvement and the continuous development of data sharing platforms, and the increase of legal protections and transparency around, you know, the legal protections that people have around data sharing. So that's really important. And I think we kind of spoke about sometimes the difficulty of allowing access and the energy bills, and, you know, you need simplicity, but there's also a lot of sort of legal and process that needs to be made, yes, simple, but it needs to be there, for people to feel the process can be trusted. So there is a sort of a balance there in terms of oversimplifying the process and still protecting the energy user, the energy producer, the energy citizen, if you like. So in terms of challenges, the biggest challenge was seen around energy literacy and the lack of clarity and access to energy bills. Energy bills, when they could become available and the data that's there is not very easily digestible to people. And linked to that, there was an issue around digital skills. So we've moved on actually in our work, and we've done workshops around how to improve energy literacy, how to improve digital literacy, and we will have deliverables available on that soon. And finally, just in terms of how we frame data sharing, this was a really interesting question that we developed with our participants, was developing data sharing for operating renewable energy assets. Should it be a commercial activity? Should it be a public good that requires public action and governance? Or should it be both in collaboration? And I suppose that's the essence of the question around energy communities. What is it? Is it a commercial enterprise? Is it something for the good of the wider community? And how do you meet that balance? So for the community in Dangle, it's absolutely both in collaboration. And there's still a lot in terms of teasing out how that works. And we've seen in other communities that there's a tendency to sort of to capture bigger companies that are, more commercial activity, to capture this whole idea of energy community. And that is a danger in terms of, that trustability of people to participate in energy communities. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Alexandra, for sharing with us these results from the workshops in Dingle. Now, without further delay, I will ask the next speakers. If there's any question, you can also type it in the chat. But I will ask Julia and Adam to start sharing your presentation, please, and to not lose more time. Thank you.
Can you see my screen? No.
Yes, I can see the screen.
No?
Yes,
now that's working. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for being here and thank you for listening. I'm Julia and I will present with Adam how social dimensions can be used to inform energy tool development. It is a qualitative analysis of tools for energy communities. Alex gave already a brilliant introduction what we did before, and we used the information. We did more than 2 deliverable workshops in Dingle. We did it also in Portugal and in Austria, and we did other workshops as well. And the outcomes we try to use now for informing tool development to bridge the gap basically between the social science and the technical part. Adam.
Yeah, so if we just skip over the vision, we've kind of covered this. Go on to the next slide straight away. So these are the pilot sites, and again, skip straight onto the next one. Let's try and make this as streamlined as possible. These are the workshops that we ran that Julia's just mentioned, and we also did a couple of focus group workshops with prototype testers and one with non-testers of an engagement app in the Austrian pilot site. And skip onto the next slide straight away, running through this to the good stuff.
Yeah. Should I continue?
Yeah.
Okay, so in almost all pilot sites, Empower is developing tools tailored specifically for each local energy community. However, the broader goal is to scale these tools for use in other energy communities as well. And these tools are designed for everyday community members to empower managing the production, distribution, and consumption of energy. But often reveal a gap between developers' intentions and user experience. So most people have certain expectations based on the apps they use daily, how they look, feel, and function. If energy tools don't follow these familiar design patterns or user experience standards, they risk being confusing or even unusable for people with lower digital or energy literacy. What may feel intuitive to a developer might not make sense to the average user.
Yeah, so that said, one of the recurring challenges that we observe is that the tools are often developed for the communities rather than with the communities. And this leads to misaligned assumptions where the target group isn't properly engaged or consulted. But the issue goes beyond just development. There's also a gap in how we integrate social approaches, and community insights gathered through valuable social research methods are rarely translated into actionable technical specifications. And this results in underutilized social insights. And that leads to a persisting disconnect between developers and end users caused by knowledge gaps and very different communication styles. Ultimately, we see limited adoption and tools may be really technically sophisticated, but fail to truly engage the users. And the consequences of this are poor user experience, reduced trust, but in some cases, they can also lead to the complete abandonment of the platform.
So to overcome this gap, we need real collaboration. Effective co-design must involve closer, continuous integration between technical teams and social researchers to bridge these gaps and create tools that truly work for the communities they aim to serve. Current tool development is primarily driven by technical demands of the energy assets, but often ad hoc and lacking solid foundation in relation to psychological frameworks. And systematic integration of social and behavioral dimensions into tool design remains underexplored, mainly due to unactionable recommendations. So what did we do? As a first step, our work proposes an attempt to systematically align digital tool developments with behavioral and social dimensions.
So first, we identified some of the key social dimensions based on input from the workshops. Themes like education, inclusivity, personal relevance, these all emerged as essential aspects to integrate into digital tools, helping the users feel more oriented, welcome, and personally addressed within the app. Secondly, we selected two specific community tools developed within the Empower project, and we examined their user interfaces, their features, their functionalities. Using clear definitions for each of the social dimensions, we systematically assessed whether these aspects were fully included, partially included, or not included at all. And to ensure robustness, multiple reviewers evaluated the tools independently, and the final results were built by averaging out these assessments. Basically, from this, we derive actionable recommendations. The mapping of features to social dimensions can then serve as an exemplar for future developments, and unmapped social dimensions are indicative of missing features that could then be included. So this is the feedback that we can then give back to the app developers.
So as mentioned, we found a variety of social dimensions, as for example, collaboration or privacy. And in total, we are currently working with 19 categories. A few examples to give you an impression of the clear definitions we used for our analysis. For example, education supports user learning and literacy around energy systems and technologies, empowering informed decision making. I skipped the next slides because of the timing. I leave it to the interested reader to go over it later.
Okay, yeah, so in terms of the tools, let's actually show you the apps. The ones that we selected and analyzed were the Cartif tool, and Cartif is a private non-profit applied research and technology center founded in Valladolid in Spain, and it's multidisciplinary and they focus on smart cities, smart grids, and energy efficiency. Meanwhile, the R-Power tool is developed inside R-Power, which is a young energy cooperative in Austria, founded in 2018 by 19 citizens. It's a citizen energy cooperative, so Genossenschaft, organized to enable people to directly participate in the energy transition. They offer a peer-to-peer online marketplace for renewable electricity, Ökostrom, generated by the members. And the platform really handles matching producers with consumers, as well as billing, and supply. Our Power has got a really clear business model and therefore has a very different focus from the Cartif tool. From these descriptions, really, the two selective tools are developed under very different circumstances for different purposes. So we're not comparing the tools to each other, we're simply assessing them both.
So the Cartif app is designed to support citizens in both creating and strengthening their energy communities, while also helping users discover existing communities they might want to join. Cartif aims to be used across multiple European countries, and as such, it offers multi-language support, making the tool more accessible to a wider audience. And when we look at the Our Power app in a moment, we'll see that it is currently developed exclusively for the Austrian market and therefore is only available in German. Additionally, the Cartif planning tool provides tailored information for different user groups, from ordinary citizens to energy experts. And this makes it more inclusive as it takes into account language diversity, user ability levels, and varied backgrounds. One of the key strengths of the Cartif planning tool is its educational component. The tool includes helpful features throughout. For example, as you can see here, there's a question mark icon, and when clicked, it provides additional explanations such as what self-sufficiency means. This kind of built-in guidance is especially valuable for users who may be new to energy concepts, helping to make the tool more accessible and informative.
The Our Power app serves a completely different purpose compared to the Cartif tool. It was designed around membership in the cooperative, where users sign up either as small-scale producers, consumers, or prosumers of renewable energy. At first glance, the model might seem quite individualistic. Someone offers energy, somebody else buys it. But in reality, the underlying vision is collective, to work together towards a shared energy future and actively contribute to the energy transition. Using the Our Power marketplace doesn't necessarily lower your electricity costs, but it does ensure that your energy is fair, local, renewable, and supports the decentralization of the energy system. The app itself is really very simple and user-friendly. Keep it simple. It really is. It shows your personal and community energy consumption and sends notifications to inform you when it's a good time to use energy. For example, use energy between 12 and 1. And this kind of real-time feedback makes the app personally relevant and actionable for the users. The response to notifications in the Our Power app is intentionally simple. The users can choose between yes, I'm in, bin dabei, or I don't have the time, keine Zeit. This lightweight interaction encourages engagement without overwhelming the users. It's very, very easy for the user to just simply take part. And this kind of echoes a little bit to what one of our listeners, Dr. Mario Faschang, was saying earlier on about keeping things very, very simple. People don't understand otherwise. And by indicating when it's best to use energy, the app helps to optimize local energy consumption, increases self-consumption within the community, and reduces the need to import energy from external sources.
So both tools, Cartif and Our Power, are still under development. So not all features were available at the time of our analysis. What you are seeing here is essentially a snapshot from early September this year. We've presented the results side by side, but it's important to remember that the two tools are at very different stages of development and serve distinct purposes. So to assess the integration of social dimensions, we used a simple coding system, 1 for included, 0.5 for partially included, and 0 for not included. We then averaged the scores across multiple reviewers for each dimension. And as you can see, Cartif scores highly in fairness and inclusivity, while Our Power performs strongly in relevance and simplicity. For example, Cartif appears to score lower in areas like privacy, but that might be due to features not being visible yet or still in development. Similarly, for education, Our Power provides a good amount of guidance on how the system works and how to sign up. However, more basic explanations like what a kilowatt hour actually is are currently missing, which is why this category was marked as only partially included. So if a tool scores high across relevant social dimensions, it can be used as exemplar for similar applications. And if a tool has little support for certain social dimensions, it is worthwhile considering if the inclusion of such features could be beneficial.
First of all, we would like to, of course, thank R-Power and Cartif for granting us access to their tools for the analysis. Without their support, this research wouldn't be possible. Through this work, we have set out to achieve three main goals. We propose a methodology to help bridge the gap between insights gathered from community engagement and the actual development of digital tools. And by reviewing real tool features against the social concerns raised during the engagement activities, we aim to offer more actionable and impactful recommendations. And it's important to note, though, that we only had access to the two applications which are both still under development. As such, not all the features were available at the time, and the results should be interpreted as qualitative insights rather than definitive conclusions. Finally, one of the limitations of our approach is that the alignment between the social dimensions and the tool features is, of course, to some extent subjective. We've tried to mitigate this by using clear definitions and averaging the evaluations of multiple reviewers to ensure greater consistency and balance, though.
We included some references. I think the presentations will be shared later, so for the interested reader, please have a look. And that's from us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we can see how the social dimension can also inform technological development with this example of these two of the tools. We have many, but these are very representative. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Julia. And if there's any question for the speakers that just presented or about in general the Empower project and in the social dimension, please, now it's the time to, if you have something about your mind, it's possible. Otherwise, just thinking about time, I'm going to present this last slide. And I think you're watching the wrong. Yes, still wrong. Sorry. Just by the end of this session, I want to say that recordings for the webinar 1 and the webinar 2 are available in the Empower website. You can find them there. And if you were not able to join, we had this nice policy session last week in the frame of the EU Regions Week, European Week of Region Cities, where we discussed with representatives from projects FEDECOM and Smart Core projects. Both are EU-funded projects. One is a Horizon as the Empower project, and the other one is an Interreg project, where they are also dealing with digitalization, flexibility on energy communities. So if you have the chance to look at the policy session, it's a really nice panel discussion with clear examples from other projects across different countries in Europe. And yeah, we invite you for our last session of this series of webinars of the Empower Leadership Program, which happens next week, the 30th of October, 2026. We're going 2025, sorry. We're going to look into some effective data strategies, some governance models, and innovative business models to scale up your energy community. That's it from my side, and I thank you all who stayed until the very end, and thanks to all the speakers who presented today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.